Marathon training for over 40-year-olds is the topic today. So athletes out there, you're probably one of them that's in your 40s like I am. I'm 47. I've been running since I was 15 years old. If you're training for a marathon and you're over 40 years old, my best recommendation, because I've experienced this as well, is you have to make sure that you definitely give yourself a longer buildup. In my opinion, I think athletes over 40 years old, if you're really trying to run a new personal best in the marathon distance, you should be giving yourself a minimum of 6 months, but thinking more toward a year buildup for your marathon, okay? I would recommend sprinkling in some races throughout that 1 year buildup for your marathon. Maybe some 10-mile time trials, 10-mile races, half marathons, even some 5Ks to sprinkle in some speed sessions throughout this buildup for your goal marathon. I think for the athlete that has been away from the sport for many years, I think it's even more important to think longer, because again, maybe you've been away from the sport for several years and you're just not hitting the types of splits that you want right now, okay? Remember, it takes about 3 weeks to a month for your body to adapt to any stress you're placing on it. So if you're out there and you're running 7-minute miles, okay, for your long run, and you're really having a difficult time for that, I promise you, in 3 weeks to a month, that same pace is not going to feel so difficult anymore. Okay, another tip I would recommend for athletes that are marathon training for 40-year-olds, athletes that are over 40 years old training for marathons. Keep in mind also that you may need up to like 3 days of recovery after you do a track workout. And maybe when you were in your 20s or 30s, you might only have needed between a day or two. But the older you get, I mean, it's not that we can't run fast. I mean, the world masters record for the marathon is 2:04:19, set by Kenenisa Bekele of Ethiopia, who at 41 years old ran 2:04:19 for the marathon at the Valencia Marathon. So there are athletes out there that are running phenomenal times. There's a guy from Spain who set a over 60-year-old marathon world record, masters record, who ran 2:34 at the age of 60. He also ran a 2:27 at age 59. So be aware that you can still run very, very fast at over 40 years old, and even into your 50s and 60s, and even 70s. I mean, it just depends on the athlete, how long you want to progress and how long you want to train and race. But definitely, older athletes, it's very difficult to get in phenomenal shape quickly. Okay, and it's the same really for 20s and 30-year-old plus athletes. I mean, it does take several months to get in superior shape. But as an athlete in my 40s as well, I've been away from the sport of marathoning for many years. The last time I ran a marathon was in 2013 when I was 37. I ran a 2:32. I ran my personal best for the marathon of 2:19:35 when I was 31 years old. So training for marathons now at 47, after having a 10-year break, it's a struggle. Okay, so the best thing I can recommend from my background with marathon racing is be patient with your buildup. Think more long-term in your training rather than short-term. Okay, if you're over 40 years old, you can still run a world-class, national class, regional class time for the marathon distance. But you just have to be more patient and aware of the fact that you may not be able to get in phenomenal shape like you could as quickly as you could when you were in your 20s or 30s. Okay, a longer buildup is key. Long runs, not just running, not just doing your long runs, but getting to a point where you can work your way up to doing around a 20 to 24 mile buildup, 20 to 24 mile long run is key, because again, you're burning fat more efficiently. You're teaching your body to improve its lactate tolerance by doing a regular VO2 max workout each week, doing tempo runs each week, doing long runs, but not just slow long runs every week, but alternating your efforts. You're doing a varied pace long run one weekend, followed the next weekend by a longer, relaxed slower long run. Again, we want to burn fat. You know, you want to burn fat, but you also want to teach the body to burn fat more effectively. By training at faster paces, you get that marathon pace to feel easier for you so that you can sustain it more effectively throughout the race. I always preach the importance for athletes, regardless of age, to run a negative split in the marathon. Okay, a lot of times you can still, if you're in great shape and you've done your homework and training, you can still run a positive split in the race and still set a new personal best. When I ran 2:19, I went out in 1:07:09 through the first half marathon and came back with a 1:12:26. So I slowed drastically in the second half, but because I went out so fast in the first half, I had a solid amount of buffer time to slow down in the second half. But it's much a better strategy in most cases. Most world records, whether on the track or on the roads, were set by either the athlete that is running an even split throughout the race or ran a negative split throughout the race. And for older athletes, really, it's a better strategy to be a little bit more conservative in the first half of your marathon, and then really call upon, you know, your glycogen storage and your overall strength and stamina in that second half, and to be able to be passing people in the second half of a marathon versus getting passed and having to slow down drastically in the second half of your marathon. So I do think running a negative split, especially in the marathon distance, is a better option rather than going out too aggressive and then being forced to slow down so much that you don't hit your goal time. Nutrition, absolutely vital for older athletes. Okay, get in the habit of drinking in your long runs, practicing dropping your water bottles out every 3 miles, every 5 kilometers, taking in some calories, taking in some gels in your long runs. Okay, sit your gels out every few kilometers throughout that long run as well, or, you know, next to your water bottles as well. So you ingest some gels, you ingest some fluid, so that you get in the habit of practicing drinking as well as ingesting calories throughout your long run as well, so that when you get to the race, you've practiced that. You know, and in the race, I always talk about a lot of athletes don't have the luxury of having their own water bottles. So if you're an older athlete, even if you're a younger athlete and you don't have the luxury of having your own your own water bottle sitting on a table, it doesn't hurt to stop for a few seconds at the aid stations and actually drink the fluid in those Dixie cups that they hand out at the aid stations. It's better to do that than to pass the aid station altogether, or to grab a couple Dixie cups as you're running because you don't really want to slow down and losing the majority of the contents of those Dixie cups when you ran by. So again, it's key to think strategically if you want to run a faster marathon time as a master's runner, to think about these tactics. Okay, run the tangents in the race. Don't run further than you need to, especially as an older athlete. Okay, you want to outsmart those younger athletes in the race. So if you have a right-hand turn coming up, get to the far right-hand side of the road. Don't run in the middle lane. Don't run to the far left of the road if you see a right-hand turn coming up, and vice versa. Okay, these are things that, little tactics in a marathon that are going to really help you to outsmart your competition. Okay, stay as relaxed as you can as you're racing as well. Okay, the less muscular and physical tension, mental tension that you're feeling, the better that your performance is going to be. So consciously tell yourself to relax, drop your shoulders. Okay, if you feel yourself tightening up, you feel your face tightening up, or you feel tense as you're pumping your arms, consciously tell yourself to relax. Relax your face, drop your shoulders, stay composed as you're racing. That is very important. Okay, when I ran my 2 fastest marathons, when I ran 2:19 for 4th place at the 2007 California International Marathon, and when I finished 5th place in 2:26 at the 2011 Monumental Indianapolis Marathon, I was so relaxed prior to the start of those races because, again, you've done all the heavy work. Remember that as an older athlete, when you're training for these races, make training the most difficult part of your preparation. The race itself is not going to be shouldn't be the point where you're stressing yourself out, because you've trained far faster and at extremely aggressive efforts in training, to the point where the race itself really is the celebration of all your hard work. Okay, don't let the race be the the time to be overly stressed and over analyzing. Because again, if you've done your homework right, if you did a longer minimum 5 to 6 month build up, but preferably you've really trained for a full year and you've given yourself plenty of time to train properly for a marathon, then the day of the race is not the day to be stressed out. Okay, you've done everything possible in your build up. Like I mentioned, if you're doing a longer build up, especially for an athlete, a master's level athlete, athletes that are training for marathon training for over 40 years old and that are over 40 years old, if you give yourself a year, okay, to really plan out, say it's January, focus on maybe like a November or a December marathon and give yourself that entire year to really focus 100% on that goal marathon race. And throughout that year build up, you don't want to train the entire 12 months. Okay, I would do like a 6 month build up, then give yourself 2 weeks of recovery, and then do another maybe 5 month build up. I would train 11 months out of that 12 month block, giving yourself two week recovery periods where that you can recover from all the heavy training you're doing throughout that 12 month cycle. I think that is a good plan of action in terms of athletes that are training for a marathon and really want to think long term here. They want a longer build up. They want to take their time. They don't want to rush their fitness. I think that is a good plan of action. And if I were training for a marathon, I would do a 1 year build up. I would think, where is a marathon I can run in, say, December or November versus rushing my fitness and trying to get ready, and especially if I was away from the sport for many years. Rather than doing, say, a 4-week buildup or a 12-week buildup for your marathon, don't you think it would be a better plan of action if you gave yourself 6 months to a year? I think so. I think the best plan of action for us as older athletes is to be patient with our buildup, allow time for the body to adapt to what we're throwing at it. If you're out there and you're trying to run, if you're trying to get 7-minute mile pace for the marathon to feel easier, and you're out there and you're doing like repeat 400s on the track, and you're just barely getting under 6-minute mile pace, but you're really having a hard time doing that, be patient. You're going to get to a point where running at 5-minute mile reps, doing repeat 400s at a minute and 15 seconds is not as hard anymore. And it's going to get that 7-minute goal marathon pace to feel so much easier because you're running at paces that are down toward maybe like 3K, 5K race pace. Okay, you're running like 2 minutes faster in those, if you work your way from under 6-minute mile pace to under 5-minute mile pace for your 400s, think how much easier a 7-minute mile pace is going to feel for a marathon. Okay, so it is important to spend some time running at paces drastically faster than your goal marathon pace as a master's runner. Okay, again, it may only be for a few minutes or a few seconds, but at least get in the habit of doing that. And then as you get fitter, your heart's not going to have to work as hard. Your ability to clear lactic acid faster than it's building up is going to be much more efficient, and you're going to go in your race feeling phenomenal. Do a 10-day taper as well, okay? Especially for, I think, most athletes that have worked with me one-on-one or have gotten in one of my training plans or running courses, when they've implemented that 10-day taper, a lot of them have set new personal bests. They've reached out to me saying how much stronger they feel. And I just think that if you don't drop your volume and your intensity too far out from your goal marathon, and you continue to train, continue to keep your volume and intensity high up until 10 days out, I think you're going to go into your race feeling a lot more energized and motivated rather than feeling tired and lethargic. Okay, so that's my answer. I hope these tips for marathon training for over 40-year-olds is helpful to those of you that are in your 40s or 50s or 60s or older. Again, I think a longer build-up, long-term approach is the way to go, rather than trying to get in great shape in a very short amount of time and expecting to do that. As an older athlete, it just takes a little bit more time. So be patient with yourself. Don't give up. Don't let up. really focus on what you're aiming to do, and the results are going to come. So wish you guys and gals all the very best. Definitely check out the resource below these videos. Please like and share these videos. I really appreciate that. It helps more people around the world see these videos and for the channel to grow. And I really appreciate all of my current subscribers, new subscribers. Thank you all for watching my videos, and I will talk to you all in the next video.